call this Onslow County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. First order tonight will be a prayer followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Moxley.
Let us pray. Loving and gracious God, thank you for giving us another day. Bless all who have gathered here tonight to participate in our meeting. Be with the commissioners in their deliberations and grant them wisdom and understanding in making the hard decisions that impact the lives of our citizens. Lord, watch over the brave men and women of our armed forces who give their best in service to our country. Keep them out of harm's way and watch over their families here at home. Merciful and loving God, we pray for the people of Paris, France. Please minister to the devastated families, friends, and first responders who are dealing with the horrible tragedy that occurred on November 13th. Bless with your compassion those who speak to the brokenhearted and help the families of the victims find some measure of peace amidst overwhelming grief. Father, our hearts also go out to the Linda Johnson family who've tragically lost a grandson this past weekend. Please comfort them at this difficult time. Eternal God, as we approach the season in which all Americans gather in Thanksgiving, help us to see that no one we know celebrates this feast alone. Please, Lord, expand our table of hospitality and compassion and strengthen those whose Thanksgiving is overcome with suffering or the pain of losing a loved one. For those traveling to be with family and friends, grant them a safe and restful journey. Now, dear Lord, with deep respect for the faith, traditions, and beliefs of all who are gathered here tonight, hear us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Mr. David Cotton, Deputy County Manager, will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight, and thanks to the sheriff for being here. If you have not silenced your phones or electronic devices, please do so now. The board affords the public 2 opportunities to speak at public comment. There's a 3-minute segment in the beginning of the meeting, and if you wish to speak, you need to sign up at the table in the back. The 3-minute segment, you must keep your comments to what the agenda items are. Later in the meeting, there will be a 5-minute segment that you can speak on any topic that the board has authority over. As you have signed up, you will be called in the order, and as you approach the podium, please give your name and address and direct your comments directly to the board in its entirety. There is no response from the community, from the audience, and your comments should be civil in nature. The board reserves any response to your comments at commissioner comments, and we ask that no promotion of a business or a candidacy. At this time, I'm going to ask the county manager if he has a recommendation for the agenda before I ask for an adoption. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We do have a recommendation from County Administration. You received in your agenda package an item 6B from the Onslow County Tax Office, which is an agreement for Pictometry International Corporation to provide aerial photographs. We believe that there may be an opportunity to partner with the state or other users of pictometry, which may result in some lower cost. We would ask that the board pull the item from the agenda this evening for further research.
Do I have a motion to amend the agenda to pull item 6B?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of amending the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All in favor of, do I have a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
So moved.
A second? All in favor of the amended agenda, say aye. Aye. Okay, consent agenda, any items to be pulled? If not, I'll have a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor of adopting the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. This is the opportunity for the first public comment. Mr. Manager, is anyone signed up?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is the first public comment period. During this first public comment period, there is a 3-minute time limit. In accordance with the Board's rules of procedure, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner comment period at the end of the agenda. All comments must be directly issue-oriented with the agenda items on for this meeting during the first public comment session. Mr. Ken Brandon of 157 River Windy Road of Jacksonville is here this evening. Mr. Brandon, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 3 minutes, and if you could correct my mispronunciation of your street name.
It's Ken Brandon at 157 River Winding Road.
River Winding, thank you.
And it's going to be about 10 seconds. Good morning and good evening, Commissioners. I was here to actually speak on the agenda item that you just took off the agenda, so I'll see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. There are no other individuals signed up for the first public comment period. Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. If you would take items 4, 5, and 6.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 4, presentations. One proclamation has been prepared for presentation this evening. At this time, I'll read the proclamation. And actually, the proclamation this evening is somewhat on the lighter side. We have a lot of very weighty proclamations that the Board of Commissioners considers, but this evening, it is a proclamation for Adopt a Senior Dog Month, which is November 2015. Whereas in Onslow County and surrounding counties, there are occasions when the Animal Services Department takes custody of multiple mistreated and abused dogs that need to find a good home. And whereas older animals make the most delightful pets, they are ready to settle down in a loving home and experience happiness and security they so richly deserve. And whereas the Onslow County Animal Shelter is the perfect place to find dogs of every type, size, and personality, all waiting for a loving home. And whereas some older pets are content to snooze in a sunny spot, others are raring to go, playful and full of fun, age being a state of mind, and Onslow County Animal Services wishes to encourage all individuals to consider adopting a pet who's been around the block a few times and is ready to go again. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Onslow County Board of Commissioners declares November as Adopt a Senior Dog Month and encourages citizens to adopt their next canine companion from the Onslow County Animal Shelter and offer a forever home to an animal that truly needs a second chance. Presented this the 16th day of November 2015. Staff and volunteers of the Onslow County Animal Services Department, along with special guests, will accept the proclamation. Vice Chairman Buchanan is asked to present the proclamation. Vice Chairman, Animal Services, you may come forward.
You want to tell us what breeds we have here?
Yes. So this is Willie. He's 6 years old.
Please use the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't even know where it is. Looking at Willie here. So Willie's 6 years old. He's a hound. He's microchipped and neutered. He likes to go to bed at about 6 o'clock after napping in the sun all day. I don't think he quite stays up for Wheel of Fortune yet. So he's perfect for a home that is looking for a dog that likes to sleep a lot. And then Bela, would you like to speak to Bela?
Bela is 8 years old. She's already spayed. She is the perfect family dog. She loves children. She fits right in. She'll hop on the couch and snuggle with you all day long.
This is Cameron. She's a 9-year-old lab. She came to us about a month ago. She was very overweight. So far, she's lost about 10 pounds. But she's a sweetheart. She loves kids, loves other dogs, and loves to play, believe it or not. She loves to run and play. She's a really sweet dog, and she's already spayed, too.
Lindsay, we thank you, and it means a lot to me as one commissioner, and I know the other commissioners feel the same way. I have a rescue dog at my house, and it's a blue heeler, and the blue heeler that I got came from the shelter probably 6 years ago, and it was actually at a horse farm, and it kept running the horses all over the place and actually aggravating the animals, at the horses, because that's what they do, they heel. So I have that at home, and I know my wife's watching right now. She's probably thinking, which one of these I'm going to take home? But I think I'd get in trouble for that. But first thing I want to do is thank the staff for what they do for us and all the volunteers that help out at the shelter. Without the volunteers, we couldn't do what we do today. The shelter is a very good organization. They do very well, and they do very good for this community. And I want to thank you for that, Lindsay. And on behalf of the commissioners, we thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it over.
Anything else?
In honor of this month, our specials are $55 for dogs and $50 for cats. It's regularly $140 for dogs and $100 for cats, which is a great deal. So we really invite everybody to come on out and adopt these furry friends. Thank you so much.
Commissioners, that concludes item 4, presentations. Item 5, public hearing. One public hearing is scheduled during this meeting. The chairman has directed that I conduct the public hearing. The hearing is in regards to rezoning case LRAZ 2015-64. We will follow the standard course for our public hearing. We'll have, first of all, a staff introduction by Planning and Development Director, Mr. Ben Warren. Following the staff introduction, I will open the public hearing. During the public hearing, we will have, once again, any additional information from Mr. Warren, as this public hearing this evening is county-oriented. Followed by that, we'll have any comments from the public. I'll close the public hearing, and then the item is available for commissioner discussion and possible decision. Mr. Warren, will you proceed with the staff introduction?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Hudson. Good evening, Madam Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and Commissioners. The rezoning request that we have for you this evening is a staff-generated rezoning, and this rezoning is for property located here in Burton Park. The property owner, of course, is the County of Onslow. The parcel identification is 330-12.8 and includes a total area of approximately 11.67 acres. As you can see, this property is, as you come into Burton Park, directly behind, or as you're proceeding towards the Government Center, as soon as you pass the site where the site of the memorial will be located, the first lot on your right that has recently been cleared is the site of the requested rezoning. A couple of reasons we looked at making the zoning change. One is the nature of the area itself. As the comprehensive plan states, that areas such as the intersection of Pony Farm Road, Northwest Corridor Boulevard, and US 258 is a node, and that's where it recommends for commercial areas or commercial service centers to be located. As you can see right now, we already have highway business on 3 corners of the intersection itself. But as you come into Burton Park, just at the front area on the south side of Northwest Corridor Boulevard, we have the existing parking lot and then the memorial, but then it transitions to office institutional. But the property directly across Northwest Corridor is already zoned highway business, and so the requested rezoning would really create a more consistent approach to the corridor as you come into Burton Park, so that we'd have matching commercial on both sides, transitioning into an office and institutional zoning. And so it would create a more symmetric zoning. It would further the commercial node at the intersection of the Pony Farm, Northwest Corridor, and US 258 intersection. And just to take a look at the aerial photo, and obviously Google hasn't caught up to us with the clearing that we've done, but this is the first lot that has been cleared on the right as you come into Burton Park. As we look at the land use plan, the area that you see in dark here, the AWC, is the area-wide commercial center, and this is an area that's basically recommended for commercial and office-type uses, so the requested rezoning is consistent with what the future land use maps recommend for this area. And as we look at the comprehensive plan, again, the future land use maps recommend a highway business or commercial-type zoning in this area. The existing office institutional is not a zoning district that's listed as a corresponding zoning district. So this would increase consistency with our comprehensive plan. And as we look at the types of uses that are allowed in the highway business, it would provide increased opportunities for goods and services and a more consistent approach into the Burton Business and Industrial Park. And the planning board did consider the proposed rezoning petition and made a unanimous recommendation for the Board of Commissioners to adopt the statement of consistency and the attached rezoning resolution that you have in your packet. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Hudson for the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Warren. At this time, I'll open the public hearing on LREZ case 2015-64. There are no individuals that have signed up for the public hearing. Therefore, I'll make a call to the audience. If you did not have an opportunity to sign up in the back of the room to speak on case LREZ 2015-64, but would like to do so, please come to the podium at this time. With no one signed up and no one coming to the podium, the public hearing is hereby closed. Madam Chair, this item is available for Commissioner consideration and possible decision.
Okay. Mr. Warren, would you come back up, please? Any questions for Mr. Warren from the board? Then I'll ask my question. What is the big difference between office institutional and highway business for our listening public who may not understand what we're doing, and that it has been recommended by the Burton Park Blue Ribbon Panel that we should have more residential or highway business? Could you just give us a thumbnail on the difference between office institutional and highway business?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. The office institutional is a more low-density type of zoning district that has lower intensity type uses. So it's more catered to, say, an office park or an area where you have schools or office or supporting type uses, and really a smaller amount of traffic generated or a smaller impact associated with those uses. Our highway business is our most inclusive zoning district as far as commercial type uses go, so it would be much more intense in scale regarding the types of uses, the types of transportation or traffics that are generated by the uses, those types of things. And that's one of the reasons why our land use plan recommends those, the highway business to be located along primary corridors and at major intersections such as the intersection to Burton Park.
Okay. Okay. What's the board's pleasure? Motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Warren.
Item 6 is general items. A, playground grant application. Presenting this item is Mr. Rick Perry, Parks and Recreation Division. Mr. Perry.
Good evening, Board of Commissioners. At our October 19th Board of Commissioner meeting, Resolution 15-020, in support of the Parks and Recreation Department's application for a Play Together construction grant, which was offered through Trillium Health Resources, was approved. Since that time, I'm happy to report that the department has been selected by Trillium Health Resources to receive a grant in the amount of $400,000. No matching funds are required for this grant, and the grant will allow our department to install a fully inclusive playground at Onslow Pines Park. And I'm certainly very proud to be able to do that, and certainly hope to be able to serve the entire range of our community with disabilities, not just children, but adults, wounded warriors, everyone who can make use of such facility. What we ask for this evening is acceptance of the grant from Trillium Health Resources through the Construction Grant Initiative, the associated budget amendments, and authorization for the chairman to sign on behalf of the county.
Okay. Board's pleasure. Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is C, revision of Onslow County personnel policies. Dr. Megan Doyle, Assistant County Manager, is available to present this item to the board. Dr. Doyle.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Commissioners. As you know, and I've come up here the last couple of meetings to present information to you and ask for your assistance as we revise personnel policies to implement our new timekeeping system. This is one last housekeeping measure to allow us to be able to do that. There are two sets of policies that I'm asking for your revision on. The first is related to the on-call policy, which for some reason in the past has included an exemption for our vehicle maintenance staff. However, our vehicle maintenance staff, as you can imagine, are on call quite a bit, and they should not have been exempted previously. I'm not sure what the reason for the exemption was. I think there was a previous management decision along those lines, but we want to remove that exemption and have them treated like every other group of employees who might need to be on call. That would be the revision for Policy 514. In addition, one of the things that we found as we are working with this new timekeeping system and as we begin to start looking at our new payroll and HR systems and finance systems coming up in the next 6 to 12 months is our leave accrual rates. You'll see in Policy 702 and 703 that we have rates that include very specific numbers, and those specific numbers are creating problems not just for our new timekeeping system, but in our current payroll and our future payroll systems. What you'll see in Policy 702 specifically is a recommendation to make changes at each of the years or the spans where we approve leave for vacation at less than 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 5 will not experience a change, 15 to 20, and then 20 years and over. One thing you might notice specifically is that there's quite a difference at the first level of leave, and that is because, as you can see, for some reason there was a big jump between the first level of experience and the next level, and so we tried to even that out. Again, our goal for making these changes really is to ensure that there's an accurate accrual rate for our employees for their vacation and their sick leave. So I'm asking for those revisions, and I'll be glad to answer any questions about that.
What's the board's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
A second? Okay, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I do have a question, because I know when I looked at this previous, I was just looking at the fluctuation between, and I was wondering what formula was utilized to come up with the formula that we currently have here, the outcome.
I apologize for interrupting. I can't speak for the original formula. What I can say is in the revision of the policy, we looked to make an adjustment that made the incremental increases more evenly spaced. You can see in the first section that we increase by from 4.154 hours per pay period to 4.5. And actually in the second set, we go from 5.077 down to 5. That
Right.
will result in a smaller accrual, but it's very, very minuscule in terms of the change. The one that has kind of the biggest change is the first one. So I understand that that is a difference, but it kind of makes it more in line with the incremental changes that we experience each 5 years moving forward from that point.
Thank you.
Megan, this will only be effective from here forward. There's no retroactive changing of anything that would be detrimental to any of the employees.
Absolutely not. No, it would just be effective with your vote if you decide to approve today.
Okay. Any further from
Yeah,
anyone?
Dr. Doyle, how does this compare with other municipalities and counties as far as what our accrued rate is based on other counties?
I can't speak specifically to other rates. I have noticed across the state that there are a variance of rates of accrual across the board. Generally, the first years of service, you have a lower rate, and there's an increase over time, but it varies significantly. I apologize that I can't give you specifics on all the counties across North Carolina, but there really is not very much consistency.
And of course, all of these would meet with the Fair Labor Standards Act and all of the federal requirements as far as any time allotted.
Yes, ma'am. Particularly the policy that most concerns us about that one was the first policy I talked about with the on-call status for our vehicle maintenance staff. So
Yes.
making that change actually puts us more into compliance.
Okay, great.
Madam Chair, I do have one other question.
Sure.
And that is because some of the staff is going through training with the system, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How is the training working out for the staff currently?
We've had 2 sets of training. We had the first day of the second grouping of training today. It's my understanding, I was not here specifically for those trainings today. I will be attending tomorrow. There was very few questions. The staff was very welcoming of the information that was provided by Ms. Amy Davis, Crystal Bennett, Matt Dolej in IT, and Casey Long, who is in finance as well. And the training was very well received so far.
Very good.
We do have 2 more days of training going on.
Okay.
Okay. Anything further? With nothing further, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion approves unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Thorne. At this time, we had no items pulled from the consent agenda, so do we have anyone for the second public comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is the second public comment period. During the second public comment period, there's a 5-minute time limit. In accordance with the Board's rules of procedure, commissioners shall reserve responses, if any, for the commissioner comment period at the end of the agenda. Citizens shall have the opportunity to talk about any issue upon which the Board of Commissioners have control. The first individual that signed up to speak this evening is Mr. Kenneth Siegler of 283 Bear Creek Road, Hubert. Mr. Siegler, you have the podium for a time period not to exceed 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Kenneth, do you have one for this? We have to have one for the clerk. I'll share one with, you got another one? The clerk has to have one.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to raise concern about some issues that's occurring with the Onslow County Tax Department. If you look at the first page there, what you see is an antique car, and the value there is roughly $35,000. The next page, you'll see another antique car is roughly a $70,000 valuation. On the third page, you'll see a 1970 antique car valued at roughly $76,000. On the next page, if you look at the bottom line, under the General Statutes 105, 330.9, North Carolina General Statutes, an antique automobile shall be assessed at lower of its true value or $500. So this individual with a $76,000 car that he's trying to sell has a tax valuation of no more than $500. Now, I'm not here to bang or to speak badly about a hobbyist building a car and having a pretty car or a nice car. But he's got a $75,000 car there that he can only be tax valued at $500 or for a tax of approximately $30 a year. On the next page, you'll see a boat there. That boat, at one point in time, was completely amortized from all tax schedules. There was no value. It was zero value. It was sitting in the weeds in the edge of the woods, and the boat was retrieved, and a few holes were patched in the bottom, and a coat of paint, and the boat was used for about 4 years. The county put a tax valuation on that boat of $9,000 when the previous value was zero. And that was in 2010. A bit alarmed, I went to the Onslow County Tax Office in 2011, and we're available to come to an agreement of $900 value. No problem. In 2012, we come up with a tax value of $1,380. So this boat has actually appreciated in value while it's being amortized off the tax records, but it's increased in value for a 40-year-old boat. Now, like I said, I'm not here to knock the hobbyist with his vehicle that he wants to build and have a pretty nice car. It's good, well, and fine. But I think it's a bad atmosphere and a bad tax policy if you're going to allow somebody with $75,000 worth of personal property to only be taxed for $500, and you take a person who's pulled an old junk boat out of the woods, patched a couple of holes up on it, put a coat of paint on it, and a 30-year-old antique motor and tried to go to work to earn a living and keep a roof over his head. Your tax department needs to sharpen their pencils, gentlemen. The second issue is now that they have inflated the price from $900 to $1,300. They inflated it to $1,700. Now it's up to $1,800. Now they're going to attach your income tax return because you don't agree with their evaluation. Something's amiss for small business in Onslow County. If you want to be fair and have a fair tax evaluation, that's good, well, and fine, but make it fair to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, that's the last individual that signed up for the second public comment period.
Very well. Mr. Manager, do you have some comment for us?
Just a couple, Madam Chair, members of the board. First of all, November 22nd, as Dr. Doyle said, is our go-live period, where we're transitioning from old paper time cards and punch cards to a computerized system that will bring us more in line with the Fair Labor Standards Act and enable us to be more accurate right down to the individual employee. And with over 1,200 employees, it is very important that we have a good timekeeping system. I appreciate the board looking at the policies. One of the things we found out in the new software system is that while the old policies went to 3 decimal places, the computer system that we're going to will take things to 1 decimal place. So sometimes you can get better software and you can become more modern, but that does mean we have to change our practices a little bit. Having been one of the individuals that's been training on that new software, I still probably have a little ways to go between now and the 22nd, but we have made a lot of strides in how we're doing our training. Also, I appreciate the public comment this evening. In our audience, we do have Mr. Harry Smith, our tax administrator. I believe the tax office met today with Mr. Siegler, and I'll ask Mr. Smith to remain after the meeting this evening to once again meet with Mr. Siegler and discuss these issues with him. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll move into commissioner comments. Ms. Williams, would you like to begin tonight?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, I'd like to thank each of you for coming out to the meeting, and those of you that are watching by G10. I am interested to stand around and find out from the tax assessment office as well about this. There's some learning I can pick up and gain from the process and see what can be done in reference to that. I would also ask all of us as Onslow Countyans to think of those that are in Paris that had such a tragedy that happened and keep them in prayer, because I just think what could happen to us again as the United States of America. And I thank God for those that are serving and keeping us safe at this time, but I would ask that we all keep them in prayer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Mr. Jarman?
Have nothing. Good night.
Mr. Bright?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We approved tonight the playground equipment for our Onslow Pines Park from a grant from Trillium. It's mental health LME that Onslow County is a member of. And the funding for that park is for wounded warriors and veterans, and to make it accessible to them so they can be there with their kids. There is going to be another award from Trillium to the town of Swansboro, so there'll be 2 of those playground equipment facilities in Onslow County. So we have one in the eastern section, and of course Onslow Pines is the central section, so it's not just one location where they have to drive a long distance. Of course, it depends on where they're coming from, but Swansboro and Jacksonville's probably most convenient place. There's a lot of retirees in the Bear Creek, Swansboro area. I did, looking at this ICMA magazine, I noticed somebody conveniently tagged a page in here in this book. And it's got our picture of our county manager, Jeff Hudson, and deputy county manager, David Cotton. And it's really not, they were, part of the management team, but the whole thing is about our landfill and their money that we're making off the landfill, which is anywhere from $100,000 a year from harvesting the methane and harvesting the recyclable material and putting that back in our pocket. And because of that, our landfill, thanks to the team that we have, has become self-sustaining, and that's a plus for Onslow County. Actually, they're selling electricity to power up 2,500 homes, according to the article, and it's still an ongoing process with the solar panels. So that is a good thing for Onslow County, and it's a moneymaker that keeps our landfill funded without any tax money. Other than that, the speakers, Ken, thanks for your input tonight, and I hope you can meet with our tax assessor and get some of that ironed out. I have some old antique cars myself, and you're absolutely right. The tax value on those is put at a ceiling, but I wouldn't sell my car for $500, those antique cars. But that's the difference in automobiles and boats, and I don't know anything about the tax office and what the regulations are, but I'm sure we'll be able to work something out with you on that, Ken. Thank you for coming, and the other speaker that spoke tonight, and thank the rest of you for coming tonight. Have a good evening.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Thank you. Thank everybody for being here. I don't have much. Everybody said pretty much all of it, but those of us that were down in Swansboro Sunday for the lighting of the tree, I know that Robin Wright was there and Jack was there, and so was Barbara and myself, and I don't know how many people were down there. I mean, I know that it had to be thousands, because I remember Jack telling me, and my wife said the same thing, couldn't get in and out of the stores. That's how many people were downtown Swansboro, and they'll have their flotilla, I think, is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So if you'd like to come down to see that, it's outstanding also. But the candlelight visual was just out of this world. This past Saturday was just great. Have the Christmas tree lit and everything. It was just out of this world to have that. So for that, I'll pass it on to you.
Okay. I would like for Harry to come up front, and I hate to put him on the spot about this, but maybe we can just get some information about, I know that our regulations are state regulations, and so the county does not affix a lot of these regulations. But can you just tell our viewers, because I'm sure you're going to talk with the gentleman after the meeting, but our viewers may be having some of the same questions that our speaker had. So could you just address a little bit of the discrepancies in what he has presented to us?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chairman. The gentleman is correct. There is a state law that was passed a few years ago that it sets the minimum value that antique cars can be taxed at. And however, in order to receive that benefit, the owner of the antique car has to buy a special license plate and make an application with the local tax office in order to receive that $500 assessment. As we know, there are many statutes on the books that govern taxation. Some of them offer various exemptions or deferments, and that is one that was put in place for antique vehicles. Regarding the personal property is to be listed annually by the taxpayer. They're responsible for making us aware of what they have. Generally, what happens during the listing period, which is coming up next month, is anything that we have listed on the tax records, we send a pre-populated listing form to the taxpayer. We try to go ahead and get values on those prior to being mailed out. In many cases, if the citizen disagrees with the value that's on there, they'll let us know at that point in time, and we'll have an opportunity to send a staff person to meet with that person or go out and review the property and see if an adjustment is warranted. Also, when personal property, the appeals deadline is 30 days after the tax notice goes out, because that is basically the official notice of what the value of the property is, and that's different than the way real estate is handled. So actually, taxpayer has until 30 days after the bill date in order to request a review of the personal property value each year. And in addition to appealing to the tax office, you also appoint a special Board of Equalization review where a citizen has access, if they disagree with the value that the tax office had and they've gone through the review process with us, they can ask the Board of Equalization Review to review the value, and then they will make their own decision based on what they feel like the value is. And beyond that, there's another level of appeal to the state, which is very rare for personal property to go to that level. We do endeavor to try to be as fair as possible. If we're aware that there's a concern, if we're not notified that there's a concern, then the value may roll over to the next year, and once that appeals period passes, basically we don't have any authority under the state law to go back and change it for a previous year.
Yeah.
I did have an occasion to meet with Mr. Sigler before the meeting for a few minutes and was made aware Friday that he had contacted their staff, and the personal property staff is going back and gathering the records, and we'll be reviewing those and see if there's any adjustments that can be made. I think everything in the previous years is paid up until tax year 2014, so we'll be looking at that and seeing if there's any leeway for an adjustment. I was also made aware that Mr. Sigler contacted our appraisal division today regarding his real estate value, and I do know that they have asked one of the real estate appraisers that works that area to be contacting Mr. Sigler to make a visit to review his real estate value. Not aware of any review request that was made last year after the reappraisal notices that were sent out, so in all likelihood that would be for the 2016 tax year.
Okay.
And the real estate values, just for the viewing audience, real estate values are appealed during the spring each year. By law, once the Board of Equalization Review adjourns, there's no leeway to go back and reopen an appeal or open a new appeal for real estate value. So those typically had to be filed in our office in the spring of the year prior to the April 1st time frame.
Okay. Thank you, Harry.
You're welcome.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I think it's very important that our citizens realize that our tax office is not the know-all, end-all for the appraisal. If there's a discrepancy or we've made a mistake, all you've got to do is just let us know, and we will be happy to look at it. But we do have rules and regulations that we have to follow. So please comply with the deadlines. And if you do have a question about your real estate, whether it's personal or real value, we'll be more than happy to reassess it. Just one other thing that I have tonight. We had Veterans Day this past week, and on Veterans Day, I attended a funeral for a man that had raised his family just a couple doors down from me. And I did not realize until his funeral that he had fought in World War II for almost 4 years. He was awarded 5 Bronze Stars and a Good Conduct Medal. Mr. English never indicated, nor did any of his children, that he was a true hero. And I just want to say to one and all, the people that live around us may not always tell us their past history, but some of the old people, like Mr. English, 96 years old, I imagine his life and the battles he fought for our country were indescribable. So I just wanted to remind all of us as we pass through life to look around. That person that we're walking past may have a story that would flabbergast all of us. So with that, I will say good night and ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.